The day had already wrung me out like an old dishcloth, and it wasn't even noon. The office lights buzzed overhead, fluorescent and merciless, bleaching the cubicles into a graveyard of yawning employees and the sound of keyboards clacking like cicadas in summer. I sat hunched at my desk, my forehead pressed to the cool veneer of the table, counting the seconds until my stomach stopped lurching. Morning sickness. Whoever named it that deserved to be locked in a room with an army of queasy omegas, because it didn't just arrive in the mornings. No, it came in ruthless waves, before meetings, during train rides, in the middle of client calls. My body had turned into a traitor, and all I could do was clutch my abdomen and pray I didn't embarrass myself in front of the HR guy, whose cubicle was unfortunately right next to mine. I sighed, dragging my phone closer. My baby's ultrasound photo filled the screen, grainy but precious. I'd stared at it so often these past 2 weeks that I could practically trace the outline with my eyes closed. The small curve, the faint little flutter, the proof that something, someone, was growing inside me. My chest twisted, a mix of dread and tenderness. This baby had come at the worst possible time. Single, juggling bills with 2 part-time jobs and 1 very judgmental landlord. My so-called friends had either drifted away or sent polite, awkward messages that reeked of pity. Except for Minho, my best friend since school. He was the only one who still sent dumb memes at midnight and asked if I'd eaten. I smiled faintly, thumb hovering over his contact. Minho had been begging me to send him the ultrasound photo. "I want to see my honorary niece or nephew," he'd said yesterday, half joking, half serious. Maybe sharing it with him would make this feel less lonely. So between 1 sip of stale breakroom coffee and another desperate attempt not to throw up, I tapped the screen, attached the photo, and hit send. There. Proof of my impending parenthood sent to the one person who wouldn't judge me. Or so I thought. Because less than 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed with a reply. Unknown number. Whose child? My blood froze. I blinked at the glowing words as if they might rearrange themselves into something less horrifying. Not Minho. Definitely not Minho. I checked the contact again, and my heart sank. In my exhaustion and foggy pregnancy brain, I had pressed the wrong number. A completely unfamiliar one. "Oh, great," I muttered under my breath, pressing a palm to my face. "Fantastic. Just what I needed. Random strangers now have exclusive uterus updates. Maybe tomorrow I'll send them my grocery list, or my rent notice, or maybe a live video of me puking in the office toilet." I wanted to dig a hole in the office floor and bury myself in it. My thumbs flew across the screen. "Sorry, wrong number." I hit send, then set the phone down, trying not to hyperventilate. It was fine. People get wrong texts all the time. The stranger would shrug, maybe laugh, then forget about it. End of story. Except, of course, that wasn't the end. The typing dots blinked back at me. My stomach dropped. "Unknown number. You have a child?" I groaned softly, thunking my forehead against the desk. Why is this person interrogating me? Who even replies to wrong numbers with life questions? Should I tell them no, actually it's my neighbor's baby and I'm just moonlighting as a stalker? My sarcasm wasn't helping the panic clawing at my chest. I should ignore them. That was the smart thing. Ignore. Block. Move on. But my hand trembled as I typed instead. "Yes, but sorry, I really didn't mean to bother you. Please just forget it." I pressed send, my cheeks burning even though no one around me knew what disaster I had just created. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. 30. No reply. Relief washed over me. Finally, the universe had decided to spare me a shred of dignity. I opened my work email, trying to refocus on the mountain of tasks waiting for me, and then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Where are you?" My head snapped up, eyes wide. My pulse spiked so fast it made me dizzy. "Excuse me?" I whispered to no one in particular. "Where am I? Who even asks that? What are you, my mom? Google Maps? A stalker?" My mind scrambled for rational explanations. Maybe this was a scam. Yeah, one of those weird phishing scams where someone pretends to know you. That had to be it. Still, a cold shiver slid down my spine. The bluntness of the words, the weight they carried. It didn't sound like an ordinary scammer. With shaking fingers, I hit block. Done. Crisis over. Or so I thought. Not even 2 minutes later, my phone lit up again. A new message. Same number. Which shouldn't have been possible. You dare hide my pup from me? The words slammed into me like a thunderclap. My throat went dry. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding against my ribs, nausea swirling in my gut worse than before. Hide. His pup? Who the hell was this? And why did it feel like I had just invited something terrifying into my life by pressing the wrong damn button? 2 months before the ultrasound photo. I still remember how the night smelled of rain and cigarette smoke outside the club. The kind of night that already tasted like a bad decision. Come on, just this once. Minho's voice rang through my phone speaker, bright and coaxing. You've been buried in work for weeks. You're going to wither away like some hermit crab if you don't come out. It's a small party. Drinks, music, no pressure. I pinched the bridge of my nose, sitting on the edge of my bed. My tiny apartment felt even smaller tonight, the walls closing in with unpaid bills and silence. The last thing I wanted was to go drink with a bunch of loud people pretending they weren't all half broke and half lonely. I don't know, Minho, I said. I'm tired, and I have work in the morning. You always have work in the morning, he shot back. You're going to forget what fun feels like. Just show up, okay? Please? We all miss you. I hesitated. My chest felt heavy with exhaustion and, if I was honest, loneliness. Maybe one night wouldn't kill me. Maybe it would remind me that I was still young, still alive, not just a ghost paying rent. Oh, fine, I said finally, running a hand through my hair. But only for an hour. Minho whooped. Knew you'd say yes. I'll text you the address. Half an hour later, I was standing outside a neon-lit building in the city center, the bass from inside thumping through the sidewalk like a heartbeat. The rain had slicked the pavement, reflecting the colored lights in streaks of pink and blue. Inside, the air was warm and electric. Music thudded from hidden speakers, a mix of laughter and clinking glasses filling the crowded space. Minho waved from a booth, already surrounded by familiar faces from college. You made it, he grinned, pulling me into a quick hug. I said 1 hour, I warned, but a small smile tugged at my lips despite myself. He shoved a drink into my hand, something sweet and sharp. Relax, just one drink. I told myself it would just be one. One drink turned into two. Two into three. By the time the DJ changed tracks, my head felt pleasantly light, the edges of my worries blurred. I laughed at Minho's bad jokes, swaying to the music without realizing it. It had been so long since I'd felt anything close to carefree, but then, somewhere between the third drink and a trip to the bathroom, something shifted inside me. Heat. A sudden low burn curling up from my belly, spreading like wildfire. My breath hitched. No, not here. Not now. I stumbled into the bathroom, gripping the sink so hard my knuckles whitened. My reflection in the cracked mirror stared back at me, flushed cheeks, pupils blown wide, a sheen of sweat across my forehead. Shit, I whispered. No, no, no. My heat cycle wasn't supposed to come for another week. I always kept suppressants for emergencies, but I hadn't brought any tonight. Stupid, stupid. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to steady my breathing. The scent of my own pheromones was already leaking into the air, sharp and sweet, impossible to hide. Outside the door, the bass line thudded, but it was another sound that caught my attention. A faint, low growl, like an animal catching a scent. My heart stopped. The bathroom door swung open, and a man stepped inside. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair damp from the rain, eyes like coals under heavy lashes. His scent hit me first, raw pine and something darker, spiced and electric. An alpha, and not just any alpha, one in rut. Backed up until the sink pressed into my spine. Wait! He inhaled sharply, his nostrils flaring, gaze locking onto me. His voice came out low, rough, like gravel. Omega. My body trembled. The scent of his rut filled the small space, overwhelming every rational thought. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my knees were already weak, my pulse skittering out of control. This is bad, I muttered under my breath, trying to hold on to sarcasm like a lifeline. Random bathroom encounter? Check. Uncontrollable heat? Check. Stranger Alpha staring like he's about to devour me? Fantastic. 10 out of 10. He stepped closer, his hand bracing against the wall beside my head, caging me in. His eyes were dark and unreadable, but the tension in his jaw told me he was fighting himself. Get out, I managed to say, though my voice shook. I don't even know you. You're in heat, he growled softly, as if that explained everything. And you're in rut, I shot back, gripping the sink tighter. This is a disaster waiting to happen. But then his scent rolled over me again, thick and irresistible, and my omega instincts betrayed me. My knees buckled slightly, my breath coming fast. He caught me before I could stumble, his hands warm and steady on my arms. His eyes flickered with something, struggle, maybe guilt. But then his lips brushed mine. It wasn't gentle. It was heat meeting heat, rut meeting desperation. My mind blanked as he kissed me, and I found myself kissing him back, my fingers clutching his shirt, our scents tangling in the air like smoke. He broke the kiss first, his forehead resting against mine, his breath ragged. I shouldn't, he muttered, almost to himself. But he didn't pull away. The next moments blurred, his coat against my skin, the sound of rain against the window, my own voice breaking as his hands steadied me through the storm of my heat. And then, black. When I woke, dawn was creeping through a half-drawn curtain. The room smelled of pine and me. The stranger was gone. My head pounded, my body heavy with exhaustion. For a moment, I wondered if it had all been a fever dream. Then I saw the phone on the bedside table. A new contact had been added. No name, just a number. And a single message. You are mine now. I have some work. I'll come back later. A shiver ran down my spine. I didn't remember giving him my phone. I didn't remember his name. I stared at the message until the screen went dark, my heart hammering. What the hell? I whispered. I didn't delete the number. Maybe because I was too shocked. Maybe because a part of me already knew this wasn't over. The hospital waiting room smelled faintly of disinfectant and overbrewed coffee, the kind that had probably been sitting in the vending machine since last year. I sat stiffly on the plastic chair, cradling my phone in one hand and the manila folder with my medical reports in the other. Another morning sickness episode had nearly flattened me earlier, but I dragged myself here because the doctor said regular checkups were non-negotiable. Apparently, growing a human being meant no slacking off, even when all I wanted was to curl up in bed and eat crackers until my stomach stopped plotting my murder. I scrolled absent-mindedly through my messages. Minho had texted me something dumb about a new ramen shop. My boss had sent a reminder about my shift tomorrow. My mother had sent her usual eat more soup message with a soup emoji. And then there was that number. The one I'd blocked, unblocked, then blocked again. You dare hide my pup from me? The words glared at me from the screen like a curse. I hadn't told anyone about it, not even Minho about wrong message. Because how did you even explain that? Oh hey, funny story. I accidentally texted my fetus to a stranger who now thinks I am hiding his pup. Totally normal Thursday, right? I sighed and shoved the phone into my pocket. Just focus on the appointment. That's all that mattered. The nurse called my name and I followed her down the hall into the examination room. It was quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights. She told me the doctor would be in soon and left me to wait. I perched on the exam table, swinging my legs nervously. My brain wandered to grocery lists and work emails, anything to avoid thinking about my current situation. The door opened. But it wasn't my doctor. A tall figure stepped in, broad shoulders filling the doorway, wearing a dark tailored coat that looked wildly out of place in a sterile hospital room. His presence was immediate, commanding, magnetic, impossible to ignore. His gaze locked on me instantly, sharp as a hawk's. Leon, he said, his voice low and firm. My heart lurched into my throat. It was him, wrong number. The number I'd texted, the Alpha I swore I'd never see again. I stared at him, frozen, every muscle locking tight. My brain scrambled for words, but all that came out was, "You're not my doctor." His lips curved, just slightly, like he was amused. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him with a click that sounded far too final. No way. This couldn't be happening. This was supposed to be a safe space. What are you doing here? I stammered, gripping the edge of the table as if it could anchor me. He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me. No, not at me. Through me. Like he could see past my skin and bones straight to the secret swelling quietly in my belly. Then he said it. You're carrying my air. Just like that. No hesitation, no warm-up, no introduction. I blinked. My brain short-circuited so hard I almost expected to see smoke. Excuse me? He repeated it, slower this time, like I was a child learning to read. You are carrying my air. My mouth opened, then closed again. My mind, on the other hand, was shrieking. Wow. Someone really skipped the flirting manual and went straight to caveman chapter. Where's the part where you say, "Hi, how are you, lovely weather we're having?" Nope. Straight to, "You have my child." Classic. You can't just walk in here and say something like that, I managed to splutter, my voice climbing several octaves. Who even are you? He stepped closer, unbothered by my near hysterical tone. His scent, sharp pine and something darker, stormy, curled into the room, pressing against me like an invisible hand. My body reacted before my brain could scold it, a tiny shiver running up my spine. He noticed. Of course he did. His eyes narrowed slightly, like he was filing the reaction away for later. I already told you, he said calmly, as though this were the most obvious thing in the world. You're mine. That pup is mine. My pulse thundered in my ears. Heat rushed to my face, not from attraction, but pure mortification. First of all, stop calling it a pup, I snapped. This isn't some werewolf drama. It's a baby, a tiny, innocent, unwantedly dragged into this drama baby. Second of all, you're insane if you think... Words failed me. Rage and panic tangled in my chest, tripping over each other. His expression didn't change. He just watched me, patient and unyielding, like a stone cliff waiting for the tide to exhaust itself. You don't remember, he said finally, his voice low. Something flickered in my memory. Rain against a window, the heat of his hands, the weight of his words whispered against my ear. You are mine now. I'll come back later. I shoved the memory down like it was poison.
You've got the wrong person, I said firmly, sliding off the exam table. My knees wobbled, but I forced them steady. Congratulations, Mr. Delusional Alpha, but I think you've mistaken me for someone else. Now, if you'll excuse me... I stormed past him, heart hammering, praying the nurse wouldn't ask why a stranger was in the room with me.
The appointment ended in a blur. I barely heard the doctor's reassurances about the baby's growth or the next set of vitamins I was supposed to take. All I could think about was the Alpha's words replaying in my head like a bad ringtone. By the time I escaped the building, the sky had turned overcast, heavy clouds rolling across the horizon. I wrapped my coat tighter around me, trying to shake the unease. It's fine. He'll leave. He's some lunatic who'll get bored and move on. This isn't a drama. Things like this don't actually happen. Get in. I froze. There, leaning casually against a sleek black car parked right in front of the hospital entrance, was the Alpha. As if he had all the time in the world. As if he had every right to wait for me. My stomach dropped to the pavement. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered under my breath. Did he major in Stalking 101? He opened the passenger door like it was the most natural thing in the world. I'll drive you home. I stared at him, then at the car, then back at him. Do you hear yourself? We literally just met. Well, not met, but you know what I mean. And you expect me to just hop into your car? What's next? You'll offer me candy? His brow furrowed, clearly not following my sarcasm. You're pregnant. You shouldn't be straining yourself. That's not the point, I sputtered, throwing my hands up. You can't just swoop in out of nowhere and act like we're some married couple from a bad soap opera. I don't even know your name. For the first time, something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe guilt, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by quiet certainty. Alaric, he said simply. I blinked. What? My name, he repeated, voice calm, unbothered. Alaric, you should remember it. I gawked at him. Wow, great. Love the ominous mystery act, Alaric. 10 points for dramatic delivery, truly inspiring. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Good, you said it right. Now I'll make sure you don't forget it. People passing by were starting to glance at us, and my cheeks burned. The last thing I needed was to become the starring role in some gossip chain about the pregnant Omega fighting with a tall, handsome Alpha outside the hospital. I turned sharply on my heel and marched toward the bus stop. But my chest still felt tight. Because even as I walked away, I could feel his gaze burning into my back, steady, unwavering, patient, like a hunter who already knew his prey wouldn't get far. The cool air outside should have cleared my head, but each step toward the bus stop made the world tilt just a little more. My chest tightened, and the pavement rippled beneath my shoes like I was walking on water instead of concrete. Oh, great. Perfect timing. Nothing says dignity like fainting in public while your stalker Alpha watches from his shiny black car. I pressed a hand to my temple, willing the dizziness away. Maybe it was low blood sugar, or maybe it was my body reminding me I hadn't had anything except crackers and a questionable juice box all day. Either way, my vision blurred around the edges. A voice cut through the haze, low, steady. You're pale. I turned my head just enough to see him there, closer than I realized, his shadow stretching across the sidewalk. I'm fine, I lied, which would have been more convincing if I hadn't swayed like a drunk penguin right after. Strong arms caught me before I could embarrass myself on the pavement. My body stiffened instinctively, but my head was spinning too much to argue. You need rest, he said simply. His tone wasn't pushy, but it carried the kind of finality that left no room for debate. I opened my mouth to protest anyway, something about independence, boundaries, and stranger danger, but the dizziness surged again, stealing the words from me. The last thing I remembered was the steady thump of his heartbeat against my ear before the world tilted completely into darkness. The interior of the Alpha's car smelled like leather and cedar, faintly spiced with something darker that made my Omega instincts twitch nervously. It wasn't overpowering, but it was present, like the scent had settled deep into the seats over years. I sat rigidly in the passenger seat, arms folded across my chest like a barricade. Outside, the city rolled past, a blur of storefronts, honking scooters, and people living normal lives. People who weren't stuck in a car with a lunatic Alpha who had apparently decided my baby belonged to him. I can't believe I let you drive me, I muttered under my breath. You didn't let me. You fainted at the curb, he corrected coolly, eyes on the road. I wasn't going to let you risk your health. I didn't faint. I momentarily lost balance. While clutching your stomach, he added without looking at me. I scowled at the dashboard. This doesn't mean anything. You're not my anything. His hands tightened fractionally on the steering wheel, but his tone stayed level. You belong to me. You're carrying my air. I groaned so loudly the couple crossing the street actually looked over at us. For the last time, this baby isn't yours. Do you have any idea how biology even works? Yes. He flicked me a side glance. Which is why we'll do a test. What? A test. DNA. That will settle everything. I almost choked on air. You're insane. I'm not letting some stranger poke at my baby. No one will poke at your baby, he cut in, voice smooth but unyielding. It's a safe procedure. You'll be fine. The pup will be fine. Stop calling it a pup, I snapped. You sound like a weird cult leader. Silence stretched between us, filled only by the soft hum of the engine and my increasingly loud heartbeat. Great. This is my life now, being lectured about DNA tests by a walking cologne ad with muscles. He pulled into a pharmacy parking lot without warning. Before I could protest, he was out of the car, striding toward the sliding glass doors like a man on a mission. I stayed put for exactly 2 seconds. Then curiosity and the need for prenatal vitamins dragged me after him. The automatic doors whooshed open, and we stepped into the blessedly air-conditioned space. Rows of shelves glinted under fluorescent lights. What are you doing? I hissed as he grabbed a basket. Shopping, he said simply. For what? You don't even know what... He reached for a giant bottle of prenatal vitamins and dropped it into the basket. I blinked. How do you even know what that is? He ignored me and added a pack of hypoallergenic baby wipes, then formula, then diapers. I stared at the growing pile. Oh, yes, because babies come pre-installed with teeth and need formula right out of the womb, I muttered under my breath. What's next? A tricycle? Maybe some college applications? He glanced at me, brow faintly arched. You're sarcastic when you're nervous. No, I'm sarcastic when strange men start stockpiling baby goods like it's an apocalypse. He didn't rise to the bait. He just kept moving, efficient and unbothered, as if he'd already mapped the store in his head. By the time we reached the register, the cashier's eyes were flicking between us, clearly spinning her own story. I crossed my arms and stared at the ceiling. The second his card went through, I bolted. The second his card went through, I bolted. Not a graceful movie-style run, more like a frantic shuffle toward the exit with my coat clutched around me like a shield. Okay, just leave. Call a cab. Go home. Block his number again. Pretend this day never happened. Leon. I ignored him and walked faster, aiming for the edge of the parking lot. Then my feet left the ground. What the? Alaric had scooped me up as easily as if I were a cat. 1 second I was walking, the next I was suspended in his arms, bridal style, with the parking lot spinning below me. Every head within a 10-meter radius turned to stare. Kill me now, I muttered to the universe. Or at least let me walk like a human, not a kidnapped potato sack. Stop struggling, he said calmly. You'll fall. I'm not struggling, I'm flailing with dignity. Someone near the entrance actually snorted. The cashier who'd just rung us up pressed a hand to her mouth, clearly enjoying the free drama show. My face went up in flames. Put me down! You're dizzy, it's safer this way. I'm not dizzy, I'm mortified. His arms didn't so much as tremble. He carried me straight to the car, opened the door with one hand, and deposited me into the passenger seat like I weighed nothing. By the time I recovered enough to speak, he was sliding behind the wheel again. You can't just pick people up like that, I sputtered, fumbling with my seatbelt. What do you think I am? Some kind of... His eyes flicked toward me, calm and dark. Mine, he said simply. I gaped at him. You're impossible. He started the engine, the quiet rumble filling the tense air. Buckle up, he said, like nothing had happened. I slammed the buckle into place with a scowl, muttering under my breath. Buckle up, he says, sure. Because seatbelts totally solve being abducted by a handsome caveman alpha. As the car pulled out of the lot, I stared out the window, trying not to think about the warmth of his arms, the steadiness of his heartbeat against my side, or the quiet certainty in his voice when he said mine. I sat in the waiting room, clutching the appointment slip like it was a death warrant instead of a prenatal checkup. The sterile white walls of the clinic reflected the soft hum of air conditioning, and all around me, other expectant parents chatted quietly, flipping through pamphlets or scrolling on their phones. Couples. Always couples. And then there was me, the lone pregnant Omega, whose entire support system was a cracked phone screen, 2 tired co-workers, and a pack of ginger biscuits at the bottom of my bag. I shifted in my seat, glaring at the second chair beside me where a very tall, very composed alpha sat with his legs crossed like he owned the place. Which, knowing him, he probably did. His scent, that faint pine and cedar mixed with something darker, kept brushing against my senses, and I had to bite the inside of my cheek not to let my instincts show. I still don't know why you're here, I muttered under my breath. He didn't even glance at me. Because you're carrying my air. I rolled my eyes so hard I swear I saw my brain. Great. And here I thought people waited until the baby was born to start the patriarchal nonsense. You know, I hissed softly, most people wait for a DNA test before staking claims like a caveman. Then do a test, he replied, calm as you please. I wanted to throw my ginger biscuits at his face. Instead, I crossed my arms and stared straight ahead, trying not to think about the heat creeping up my neck. When the nurse called my name, I stood up, but so did he. It's a medical exam, not a spectator sport. You're staying here, I said. I'm coming with you. He tilted his head, looking at me like I just told him the sky was green. If I'm to be responsible for you and the pup, I attend the appointments. I gritted my teeth. Fantastic. Can we get matching rings and his t-shirts while we're at it? The nurse peeked around the door, blinking at us. This way, sir. And your, Her eyes flicked between us, and I saw the assumptions forming like clouds on her face. Don't, I said. Don't what? She asked, all wide-eyed. Don't finish that thought. But of course she did. Right this way, Mr. and Mr. I groaned, dragging a hand down my face as the alpha followed smoothly behind me, unbothered. Perfect. Now we're a couple. Someone please shoot me with a tranquilizer. The examination room smelled faintly of antiseptic and warm paper. I lay back on the cushioned bed, tugging my shirt up to expose my small bump. My heart pounded in my throat, not because of the ultrasound, but because of the 6-foot-something alpha who had parked himself in the corner like a very large, very possessive shadow. The doctor, a kindly beta woman with silver glasses, rolled the machine closer. All right, let's take a look at baby today. Dad, would you like to stand closer? I sat bolt upright. He's not, but Alaric was already beside me, towering over the machine like he'd been born to it. His scent filled the room, brushing against my omega instincts again, and I swallowed hard. Fantastic. Next, he'll be breathing down my neck like some Victorian husband during childbirth. The doctor applied cool gel to my stomach, and the probe pressed lightly against my skin. The screen flickered, gray and grainy at first, then resolving into a familiar shape that still made my throat ache every time. My baby. There we are, the doctor murmured. Good heartbeat, healthy growth. Alaric leaned forward, his hand braced against the edge of the bed, eyes locked on the monitor like it was the only thing in the world. His usual icy composure cracked, just a little. I pretended not to notice, focusing instead on the tiny flicker on the screen, the rhythmic pulse that was half me and half something else. My chest tightened. Then it happened. A sudden flutter against my skin, soft but undeniable. I gasped. The baby kicked. Alaric's head snapped toward me. What? There, I whispered, pressing a trembling hand to my belly. Right there. Before I could stop him, his much larger hand covered mine, warm and solid. My breath caught, and for a second, the room shrank to just that. His hand over mine, the baby kicking beneath, and his scent curling around me like a promise I didn't want. His thumb moved slightly, almost unconsciously, brushing my skin. His eyes flicked to mine, and for the first time since this nightmare began, he looked genuinely shaken. I couldn't breathe. Who gave you the right to look like that? Like a man instead of a walking power trip? The doctor cleared her throat gently, clearly sensing the shift in the air. Strong kick, very healthy pup. I yanked my hand back like I'd been burned, wiping the gel from my stomach with a tissue. My face felt hot. Well, that's enough bonding time for today. But he didn't move. His gaze stayed on me, unreadable. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, eager to escape, but the doctor was still typing notes. Everything looks excellent. Keep taking your prenatal vitamins. Avoid stress. Her eyes flicked to Alaric. And you've got a very attentive partner, I see. I'm not, I started, but his voice cut smoothly over mine, low and unshakable. He's mine. I froze. The doctor blinked. Excuse me? Both of them are mine, he said, still looking at me. Not the screen, not the doctor. Me. My heart slammed against my ribs. Heat shot up my neck to my ears. I opened my mouth. Something, anything, a sarcastic remark. But all that came out was a strangled sound. Who gave you the right to sound that hot when you're this annoying? The doctor, to my horror, smiled faintly. Well, congratulations. I'm not... I tried again, but my voice cracked. Alaric didn't even blink. Schedule the next appointment for both of us, he told the doctor, his tone brooking no argument. Yes, of course, she murmured, scribbling in her notes. I slid off the bed, grabbing my bag like a lifeline. You're insane. Am I? He asked mildly. Yes, You can't just declare things like that in public. I didn't declare it in public. I stated it to the doctor responsible for my pup's health. I threw up my hands. You are impossible. You are. He tilted his head, that faint, dangerous curve tugging at his mouth. And yet, you let me stay. I didn't let you. You didn't stop me, he said simply. My pulse jumped. Stop twisting my words. He stepped closer, scent pressing against me again. Then stop pretending. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. My body trembled, but not entirely from fear. He looked at me like he could see through every wall I'd built, and that scared me more than his claims. I broke the moment first, shoving past him toward the door. We're leaving. Gladly, he said, falling into step behind me like a shadow. Outside the clinic, the world was still turning. Cars honked, people chattered, and my heart felt like it was trying to escape my rib cage. He walked beside me without a word, his presence heavy but steady, like a storm cloud that refused to move on. When we reached the car, he opened the passenger door with an infuriatingly polite gesture. Get in. I can walk. You're pale. I'm fine. You're carrying my air. I glared at him. Stop calling him that like we're in some medieval drama. His lips curved faintly. Then what should I call him? I didn't answer. My pulse was still hammering from the ultrasound, from the baby's kick, from his hand on mine. Get in the car, he repeated, softer this time. And to my horror, I did. I knew something was wrong the second I walked into the bakery near my apartment. Normally, Mrs. Huang, the sweet beta owner, would greet me with a smile and offer me the slightly stale buns at half price. But this time, she gave me that look. You know, the one people save for reality TV stars caught cheating on camera. Morning, I said cautiously. Mm-hmm, she replied too brightly. I froze. Oh no, not that tone. The whispers started almost immediately. At the corner table, two Omegas sipped their lattes and leaned in close. That's him, one hissed. The one who trapped him, the other gasped, eyes darting toward me. I stiffened. Trapped? Excuse me? Do I look like the mastermind of an elaborate alpha catching scheme? Because my greatest achievement this week was keeping down a boiled egg. More whispers followed me down the aisle. The pregnant one sent him the ultrasound on purpose, I heard. He's trying to rise in rank. Poor Alpha. Must be desperate to claim someone like that. I gripped the paper bag until the grease seeped through. Yes, because sending random strangers pictures of my insides is my #1 seduction tactic. Next week, I'll woo someone with my dental x-rays. When I finally escaped the bakery, my ears burned. I stomped down the street, muttering curses under my breath. Trap the Alpha, my ass. If anything, I'm the one trapped, by his delusions and his damn cedar-scented shadow. By noon, I was at work, a tiny printing shop that smelled like ink, toner, and despair. I had my head bent over the copy machine, trying not to vomit at the combination, when the bell above the door jingled. Welcome, my boss started, then faltered. Because guess who had just walked in? Yes, him. Towering Alpha, crisp suit, aura set to intimidation mode. Why are you here? I hissed, nearly tripping over a box of paper. You didn't answer my texts, he said, striding toward me like the shop was his personal office. I was working, which is why I'm here. You haven't eaten. I blinked. Are you stalking my stomach now? His eyes narrowed. You skipped breakfast. My boss, a nervous beta in his 40s, hovered by the counter, looking like he might faint. Sir, can I help you? Alaric turned, eyes flashing. Do you make him work long hours? Boss nearly swallowed his tongue. No, sir. He sets his own shifts. I groaned, covering my face. Do alphas come with volume settings? Or is it just roar, glare, and mine on repeat? Take a break, Alaric ordered me. I don't need a break. You're pale. I'm always pale. Sit, I sputtered like a broken kettle. This is my job, not your personal daycare. But my boss, traitorous coward that he was, practically shoved a chair under me. Maybe you should listen to him, he whispered. He seems insistent. Insistent? He's 1 decibel away from starting a dictatorship in here. Alaric pulled a container from a sleek bag. Home-cooked food, neatly packed. He placed it in front of me. Eat. I gawked. Did you just bring me lunch? He said nothing, just crossed his arms like a wall of cedar-scented judgment. I buried my face in my hands. Great. Now my coworkers think I'm living some tragic romance novel. Next, they'll expect me to show up with matching rings and a stroller. By the time my shift ended, I thought the day couldn't get worse. Spoiler, it did. I stepped out of the shop, ready to breathe fresh air and maybe buy myself a dignity-restoring pastry when I saw them. Pack members, 3 of them, standing across the street, whispering and pointing. One even held up a phone. My stomach dropped. Word had spread. And apparently, nothing spreads faster than gossip about an Omega and an Alpha with a scandal attached. I quickened my pace, but the whispers followed like a swarm of bees. There he is. The pregnant one. He trapped him. I felt my skin crawl. Heat burned in my chest. Anger, humiliation, fear all tangled up. And then Alaric was there, stepping between me and them like a wall. His eyes swept the crowd, sharp and cold. You have something to say? The street went silent. People froze under his glare. The air itself seemed to vibrate with his dominance. I tugged his sleeve. Stop it. Don't make this worse. But he turned suddenly, grabbed my chin, and before I could register what was happening, he kissed me. In the middle of the street. In front of everyone. His mouth was warm, firm, demanding. My brain short-circuited. My arms flailed like useless noodles. Somewhere in the distance I heard gasps, the snap of a phone camera. And me, I froze, completely. I was asking for peace, not public tongue wrestling. My heart thudded in my ears, my stomach flipped, and my Omega instincts shrieked in confused alarm. Heat pooled low in my body, betrayal to every ounce of logic screaming in my head. When he finally pulled back, his eyes locked on mine. There, he said, voice low, final. Now they know. I gaped like a fish. Know what? That you're a lunatic with boundary issues? That you're mine. The crowd scattered quickly, whispers trailing in their wake. My pulse wouldn't calm. My lips tingled. I shoved him hard in the chest. You can't just do that. This isn't some pack drama where you prove ownership with PDA. He didn't move an inch. His eyes softened just slightly. Then tell me to stop. I opened my mouth, and nothing came out. Because my treacherous body was still humming from the kiss, my baby kicked faintly, and all I could think was, oh no, 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 don't you dare make me feel anything, you stupid, stubborn alpha. So instead, I turned away, fists clenched, and muttered the only defense I had left. Buy me dinner before you try that again. His low chuckle followed me all the way home, and damn it, it sounded unfairly good. The walk home after that public disaster was torture. My lips still tingled, my cheeks burned, and I could practically hear the gossip sprinting faster than I could. I wanted to slam my apartment door shut, crawl under my blanket, and erase the memory with 3 gallons of ice cream. But of course, the Alpha had other plans. When we reached my building, he stopped. This place is too exposed. I blinked. Excuse me? Too many eyes, he said, scanning the dim street like a soldier about to declare war on the laundry line swaying from someone's balcony. They'll talk. They'll bother you. They'll bother our child. I groaned. You make it sound like the paparazzi are camped outside my front door. His gaze slid down to the mailbox, where 2 neighbors were already pretending not to stare. My stomach dropped. Oh no. See? He murmured. I glared at him. So what? I'm supposed to just... what? Move? Stay with me. I almost choked on my own spit. What? My apartment, it's safer. No prying eyes, no whispers every time you step outside. I crossed my arms. No way. That's how horror movies start. Pregnant Omega disappears after moving in with suspicious Alpha. News at 10. His jaw flexed. You fainted yesterday. Today you nearly collapsed from stress. You need stability. You won't get it here. Damn it, why did he have to sound reasonable? I opened my mouth to argue, but the baby chose that moment to give a firm kick, as if siding with him. Traitor, I muttered at my stomach. He held out his hand. Come with me. I should have refused. I wanted to refuse. But then Mrs. Lee from the second floor peeked her head out the window, whispering into her phone while staring directly at me. That was the final straw. Fine, I snapped, jabbing a finger at him. But this is temporary. Temporary, got it? No alpha dominant speeches. No caveman routines. And definitely no kissing. His lips curved, that infuriating hint of a smile. Understood. 10 minutes later, I was standing in his sleek cedar-scented apartment, glaring at the spotless counters and expensive furniture. Fantastic, I muttered. I traded nosy neighbors for a 5-star prison. But the truth was, it felt safer than I'd ever admit. The apartment was quiet except for the low hum of the fridge and the occasional car horn outside. I'd been tossing and turning on the couch for nearly an hour, trying to find a position that didn't make my back ache. Pregnancy was glamorous like that. Sore hips, swollen ankles, and a craving for ice cream at 2 a.m. Finally, exhaustion started to creep in. My eyelids drooped, and I drifted somewhere between sleep and waking. That's when I heard it. A low murmur, softer than I'd ever heard from him. At first I thought maybe I was dreaming, but then the words became clear. You'll be strong, Alaric whispered. Stronger than me. I'll protect you and our mama. You are mine. My eyes snapped open. He was sitting at the edge of the couch, one broad hand resting carefully against my stomach. His head was bowed, shadows softening the harsh lines of his face. You'll never have to feel alone, he continued, voice raw in a way that made my chest tighten. Not the way I did. You'll have everything I never thought I could give. Love, safety, family. Because... He hesitated, and for the first time I heard him falter. Because I always wanted that. But I didn't think I deserved it. Not after what I've done. The words were barely audible, as if he was confessing to the baby, and not the world. I swallowed hard, pressing my cheek into the cushion, pretending to be asleep. But inside, my thoughts spun. He wanted a family? He thinks he doesn't deserve one? This was the same man who'd bulldozed into my workplace, terrified my boss, and kissed me like the hero of a bad romance drama. But here, in the quiet, he sounded human, lonely, even. And something in my chest cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but enough for warmth to seep through. I couldn't take it anymore. I rolled over, eyes half open, and squinted at him. Are you seriously giving a TED talk to my stomach at midnight? His head shot up. For once, he looked almost startled. You're awake. Clearly. I tugged the blanket tighter around me. And before you ask, no, I wasn't eavesdropping. You were basically monologuing like a Shakespearean ghost right next to my spleen. Color touched his ears, and he straightened, trying to recover his usual composure. I didn't mean for you to hear. Yeah, well, I didn't mean to hear you admit you're secretly a soft, tragic brooder who wants a family. But here we are. His jaw tightened. I wasn't... Oh no, I interrupted, pressing a hand dramatically to my chest. Don't you dare make me like you, Mr. Brooding Caveman. My survival plan depends on hating you. His lips twitched, and for a moment, I thought he might smile. But instead, he leaned closer, voice lower. Why do you insist on denying what's already there? Because what's there is chaos, I shot back, and gossip, and public kissing disasters. Not exactly the foundation of a healthy family, is it? He didn't flinch. Chaos can settle. Gossip dies. What doesn't die is blood. My blood in you, my child in you. That's not chaos, it's truth. I stared at him, heart pounding. Damn it, why did he have to sound so earnest? Why did his eyes have to look like that? Like he was already seeing something in me I couldn't see myself. I tore my gaze away, mumbling, You sound like a bad romance drama. Before he could respond, a sudden jolt rippled through my stomach. Whoa! I gasped, clutching my side. He was immediately alert. What is it? The baby kicked, I said, breathless. His eyes widened. He froze for a second, then, as if pulled by instinct, placed his hand gently where mine rested. A second later, another small thump pulsed against his palm. His lips parted, and for once, the cool, controlled Alpha looked undone. His eyes shone with something fierce, something unguarded. "He recognizes me," he whispered. My heart flipped. The baby kicked again, almost in agreement, and then his grip on my hand tightened. "Do you see? He knows. He knows I'm his father." I rolled my eyes, desperately trying to steady my breathing. "If the baby kicks when you talk, maybe it means he hates you, genius." He huffed a quiet laugh. "Or maybe he's reaching for me." The warmth in his voice made my cheeks heat. I yanked the blanket up to hide my face. "Don't get cocky. Babies also kick when their host eats questionable street food. Doesn't mean they recognize the fried dumpling vendor as their father." But even as I said it, my chest felt warm, traitorous, alive. Because deep down, I knew it wasn't the dumplings. The baby did kick when he spoke, and it terrified me more than anything. It was late, and boredom was gnawing at me. Alaric had stepped out for a phone call, something about pack business, nothing I cared about, and I was sprawled across the couch with my phone balanced on my chest, scrolling through memes, dumb pregnancy forums, and 100 unanswered messages from my classmates. I sighed. My life used to be normal. Now, I lived in an Alpha's apartment like some unwilling houseplant. Eventually, I opened the chat history with him, out of boredom, or maybe masochism. Same thing. I started scrolling, and scrolling. Most of it was recent, him bossing me around, me snapping back with sarcasm. But as I flicked upwards, older messages surfaced. Stuff I'd never bothered to look at again. Then I froze. At the very top, before everything else, there it was. A picture of the ultrasound report. My stomach turned, and just above it, a simple message. "You are mine. I have some work. I will come back." My blood ran cold. That was the night everything changed. The faceless stranger from that night. The Alpha who'd vanished before I woke. And now, the number attached to that message was the same thread I'd been arguing with for weeks. His number. My fingers trembled as I scrolled back down to his latest message from yesterday. "Eat properly. Rest. Same thread. Same Alpha." It hit me like a truck. That's why he was so sure. That's why he'd claimed from the beginning. Because for him, there had never been any doubt. When he walked back into the living room, I was still clutching the phone, my throat dry. "It was you." My voice cracked. He paused. "What?" I lifted the screen, my heart hammering. "The message. That night. You." He didn't even blink. "I told you." I shook my head. You always said it, but I thought you were just posturing, playing the arrogant Alpha card. But you really... I never joke about what's mine." His voice was low, steady, almost dangerous in its certainty. He crossed the room slowly, stopping just in front of me. His gaze was sharp, but there was something raw under it too. "I told you from the beginning. I was always telling the truth." My mouth went dry. My chest ached with confusion, relief, and something warmer I refused to name. He was the stranger, the Alpha, the reason my life had flipped upside down, and now there was no pretending otherwise. My mind was a storm. Questions tangled in my throat, spilling over each other before I could even breathe. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why disappear that night? Was it just rut instincts or... My voice wavered. Or did I even matter to you back then? I hated how raw it sounded. I hated how desperate it felt. But he didn't flinch. He didn't try to explain with long words or pretty speeches. Instead, his hand cupped the side of my neck, thumb brushing just under my jaw. And then, before I could retreat, before I could armor myself with sarcasm, his mouth was on mine. The kiss was deep, sure, unyielding. My thoughts scattered like birds startled into flight. The sharp edge of my doubts dulled under the heat of it. my anger slipping away like sand between my fingers. All that remained was the dizzy rush of his scent and the steady weight of his hand anchoring me in place. My heart thundered against my ribs. When he finally pulled back, his lips hovered over mine, breath warm, voice a husky whisper. You matter more than you'll ever understand. From the first moment, from that night, you were already mine. I swallowed hard, my chest tight. Every question I'd wanted to demand had melted on my tongue, every argument burned away. All I could do was stare at him, trembling, my baby shifting faintly inside me like even he agreed. You're infuriating, I whispered, though it came out weak, traitorous. He smirked faintly, but his eyes were dead serious. And you're mine. And just like that, every wall I'd built cracked a little deeper. The hall was buzzing, warm with the hum of conversations and the sharp scent of too many alphas in one place. My stomach twisted, not from the pregnancy this time, but from the knowledge that I had absolutely no business being here. Remind me again why I'm dressed like a reluctant wedding guest, I muttered, tugging at the collar of the crisp shirt he'd practically shoved me into before dragging me out the door. Because you belong here, he said simply, his hand pressed firmly against the small of my back as if daring me to bolt. His palm was steady, warm, irritatingly reassuring. I belong in my apartment, with ice cream, and no judgmental strangers staring at me like I crashed their party. Except I hadn't crashed anything. He had brought me to his pack's formal gathering. And judging by the pointed looks we were already earning, this wasn't just some casual introduction. Alaric led me deeper into the room, his steps unhurried but deliberate, like every move was a silent declaration. I own this space. And worse, everyone else in the room clearly knew it too. Alphas dipped their heads respectfully, betas glanced curiously, and a handful of omegas whispered behind manicured hands, their gazes flicking between my stomach and his hand guiding me. Oh yes, the gossip fire was already lit. We didn't get far before someone cut across our path. Another alpha, broad-shouldered, his eyes narrowed with a mix of curiosity and challenge. So it's true then? The rumors? His voice carried, sharp enough to draw attention from nearby circles. You've taken an omega, and he's pregnant. I stiffened, heat rushing up my neck. I wanted to correct him, shout that it wasn't like that, but my alpha beat me to it. Yes, he said, cool and cutting. Then louder, enough for the entire hall to hear, this is my mate, and that is my child. Touch them and die. The silence that followed was absolute. Every head turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. My heart leapt into my throat. Did he just... Oh God, he did. He didn't just introduce me. He didn't just claim me privately. He declared me as his mate in front of his entire pack. My ears buzzed with the weight of his words. The alpha who had barged into my life, who bought diapers like they were bouquet flowers, who drove me insane with his certainty, had just told an entire room that I belonged to him. And the worst part? No one looked surprised. The rest of the evening was a blur of polite greetings and probing stares, the kind that made me want to shrink into the floor. Every smile directed at me felt loaded, every question double-edged. I spent half the time glaring at Alaric beside me, silently plotting his murder. But the man was infuriatingly calm, answering questions with sharp brevity, keeping me close enough that no one dared step too near. When we finally found a quieter corner, I spun on him, hissing under my breath. What the hell was that? What was what? He tilted his head, utterly unbothered, as if he hadn't just broadcasted my entire personal life to 100 pack members. That little public execution of my social life. This is my mate, that's my child, touch them and die, do you hear yourself? Who does that? An alpha, he said without hesitation. You're alpha. I sputtered, face burning. I am not... But before I could finish, a sudden kick jolted through my stomach. I froze. Then another. Stronger. Alaric's eyes flicked downward, his expression softening instantly. His large hand, already resting lightly against my side, pressed just enough to feel it. The baby kicked again. I could have cried. Not because it hurt, but because the timing was so traitorous I wanted to scream. "Oh no," I muttered, clutching my bump. "Don't you dare take his side. Don't you dare." Alaric's lips curved into the faintest, most infuriatingly smug smile. "See? Even our child agrees with me." "Our child?" I hissed. "He doesn't even know you. He just kicks when you annoy him." "He kicks because he knows I'm here," he countered smoothly, brushing his thumb in a gentle circle against the spot. His voice dropped low, rough in a way that curled heat through my chest. "Because he knows I'll protect you both." The baby kicked again, harder this time. I was done for. Absolutely betrayed, outnumbered in my own body. I looked away, trying to hide the burn in my cheeks. Unbelievable. First you steamroll my dignity, now you recruit my baby. His quiet chuckle ghosted against my ear. Maybe he just knows what you won't admit yet. I wanted to punch him, or kiss him, or both. By the time we left the gathering, I was ready to disappear under a blanket and never resurface. Alaric walked beside me in silence, his hand brushing against mine just enough to remind me he was there. At his apartment, I slipped into the kitchen instead of sulking on the couch. My nerves had nowhere to go, and before I knew it, I was whisking eggs and sugar, measuring flour, trying not to think about how insane it was to be stress baking in a stranger Alpha S home. When the cake was finally done, I set it on the table between us. My heart thudded. "I baked you this," I blurted. "Not because you deserve it, but because I guess I need to say it. You drive me crazy. You bulldoze through my boundaries. You make me want to scream half the time, and you're insufferably smug." He arched a brow, amused. "And?" I exhaled, pressing a hand to my stomach where the baby kicked softly, as if urging me on. "And I think I like you. More than I should. Maybe I even..." I swallowed hard. "Maybe I even want you to stay." For a moment, silence stretched. Then his hand covered mine on the table, warm and grounding. His voice was low but sure. "You don't need to bake me cakes to confess. I already knew. I was just waiting for you to admit it." He leaned closer, his voice low and unshakably certain. "You can fight me all you want," he whispered, the warmth of his breath brushing my ear. "But you'll never fight alone again." My face flamed. "Then eat the cake and shut up." He laughed, deep, genuine, and leaned across the table to kiss me, sweet and slow, tasting faintly of sugar, and something I was finally willing to call home.